Hi, my name is Peter Hogan DePaul. I'm the developer evangelist for Phone.com, and I wanted to talk to you today about our new RESTful API and some of the features that you'd be able to interface with and the benefits you can get from them. Some of the things I wanted to cover were just some general background information for those who aren't knowledgeable about it, particularly what is an API, what is the concept of REST, and what our motivation was for wanting to create these features. I also want to go through some of the actual beta features that we have available now, go through a couple of code examples, and explain to you what our Telephony Toolkit is, which is basically our web UI to be able to create these applications and interface them with our backend system. I also want to provide with you some use cases so that you get a better idea of what you can do with the API. So, what is an API to begin with? An API is Application Programming Interface. Basically what that means is it gives you the ability to expose features to your customers in a secure manner so that they can use Phone.com systems to integrate things with your application. This allows you to actually be able to log in using your secured credentials, query things such as menus, queues, be able to create them through your system, as well as get information back about calls and SMS messages, or create them yourself on the fly. In order to do this, you have to create an application point which will provide for you an application key and password, which will be your secure credentials to actually interface with the system. So now to go through what the concept of REST is. REST is a term for representational state transfer. Basically what that is it's a philosophy for how you actually interact with the system. In the past you would use things like SOAP or socket connections in order to actually interface with backend systems. What REST does is it uses the HTTP layer to actually create these interactions. So using HTTP methods such as post, put, get, and delete, you can actually modify your system information. The way you do this is through a base URL, which is basically your access point. You can then add to the end of it a service that you want to actually interface with, such as calls or SMS, and then the actual request for what you want to do with that service through a content body. You can use like JSON or XML. In our case, we prefer that you use JSON for the actual request body. And we'll get into some details about how you would actually structure something like that later on. Just to give you an overview, the methods that we use: post creates objects within the system, put allows you to modify objects within the system, get will return information about an object or objects in the system, and then delete can delete an object or several objects within the system. You have to have a unique identifier that is created with the post for the object that's there. If you don't get it the first time, it's not a big deal. You can look up the object through a GET request, but then you have to iterate through to find which one you want. Or you'd be able to go through the Telephony Toolkit to grab the actual UUID and reference it inside. It's usually best, though, for you to be able to grab that UUID and save it for yourself for later so that you can modify the individual resources. So what was our motivation for wanting to develop this? Well, we had a lot of different reasons behind it. The first was that we had a number of developers who had been asking for us to expose features to them within our system. We had been doing this on a case-by-case basis, but more of a demand for this has been increasing over the years, so we figured that we'd come up with a more robust solution to be able to expose more of our features to customers and developers. Customers were also interested in being able to grab information from our system to integrate it with things such as their CRMs and other applications that they had. Things like call logs, voicemails, voicemail transcriptions, statistics, etc., to give them more information about how their actual phone service was benefiting them or how they could add more value to their own service with it. Internally, we wanted to actually use this to create more robust features for ourselves. Eating our own dog food in the way of creating things such as plugins or other applications which would help better service our customers. General things such as click-to-call buttons, messaging services, etc. are things that we envision that we would want to create with a system like this. And having a generic platform like this is useful for anyone. Even if you don't necessarily know what it is that you want to do yet, having that there makes it easier for you to want to scale out your system later on. So having this platform by which people can develop and be able to create plugins for themselves or be able to propose plugins for other people that they can create with our system, it gives them this we give them this medium now to be able to do that. So wrapping it back up, what the API does is combine the best features that we have of our API, of our phone system already, and then be able to give you interaction, a more robust interaction with it. So we already have our hosted PBX, which allows you to create menus, queues, call routing, greetings, voicemails, and other features that you use with your phone systems, as well as the generic call features and SMS features that you have with it. You can be able to create these objects as well as instantiate and modify them on the fly. So if you wanted to create a menu, you could do it completely through the API and never have to actually log into your system. The same is true for being able to initiate a call between two extensions that you have on your system, or to send an SMS out to a number of your customers for a promotional campaign. You can do this by using some sort of programming language. Typically, web scripting languages would be the most common to try to give an interactive system for your customers to access. But you can use any language that you want so long as it can communicate over HTTP and can be wrapped up into a request. So it's not just limited to web scripting languages. You also have the ability to go into your system like you do now through the control panel and actually modify how these things are interacting and see which objects you want to modify. This is called the Telephony Toolkit for us. So why would you want to develop for this? Basically, one of the main benefits that we've always had is a large support community. We have a new community site that's currently in development that we will be releasing for not only internal developers to interact with customers and developers, but also for peers, other developers who are currently developing with it, to help each other out. Our customer support has been award-winning for several years now, and we pride ourselves in having it. And being the developer evangelist, I will be helping facilitate other developers to actually help them out with any issues that they're having, as well as go back to our technical team and R&D team to raise any concerns that they may find while they're developing with our system. The overall goal is to try to provide a full solution to integrate all of your business processes with your unified communication systems. So we can give you all the features that you have within your phone system that you can also integrate on your back end, and be able to cross-link all important business information with your communications information. The other important thing is that we have a pretty large community of people who are interested in actually using this product. If you're an independent developer and you want to actually get engaged with the community, you want to cut your chops, we have a customer base of well over 25,000 customers for you to interact with who have needs that want to be satisfied through an API like this. So you can be the facilitator for bringing their phone.com system into their business systems for them. So getting on to the features, here are some of the features that we currently have available in beta or in development. Right now we're working on our call service. It's currently in the final stages of actually being able to be implemented. We already have available our SMS services, so you can be able to send and receive SMS messages and be able to use your system to interact with them. We also allow you to create, edit, and delete menus and queues, as well as be able to create routing rules for your calls, such as, and dealing with things such as greetings and creating hold music, which you can do either through our text-to-speech features or by uploading media to the system. Right now we're also in development of being able to utilize batch, which is establishing multiple calls or SMS messages out. The idea is that if you have several to schedule, instead of iterating through a list of them or a list of objects to do that, you can just send them all out at once, and then our system will manage dynamically how it is that those messages will be sent out. So you don't have to deal with any of the management of in what order those things are sent out or the timing with it. We will manage that for you through the batch service. There are also a number of features that right now you can only use the GET request in order to find out information. You'd actually have to go into the Telephony Toolkit to configure them. Things such as adding contacts, contact groups, being able to create schedules, and managing your individual phone extensions are things that you will have to do through the Telephony Toolkit while we're still in beta. Once we get to a full release, all of these features will also be available for you to actually modify and create and delete on the fly. So here's an example of some of the code segments that we have. For example, we have, if you look at the top here, this is done in PHP, an example of our payload. What this is basically a block text method within PHP, and the JSON object gives to you the caller ID that you're sending from, the caller ID that you're sending to, and the actual content message that's going from that number to the others. The from caller ID is a number that you have on your actual account that's registered with the account that the application resides on. Next, with PHP, there is a curl, which is basically a way to create a URL that is sent out for your HTTP requests. So with this, we set up our base URL as our v1 API phone.com URL, and then are accessing the SMS service. From there, we have a basic authorization that goes out with your application key and password. So the next line deals with that for the curl auth basic, and then the line after that for the user application key and password. Using a basic encoding uses a base 64 encoding structure. So if you have any questions about how you're actually supposed to encode it, we use base 64. You then define what the actual method is that you're going to be using, which is the line below that for the curl out post. And then beneath that is what those post fields are actually going to be, which is the content body that we created up at the top, which is defined by the variable post payload. From there, you then define HTTP headers so that the system knows what type of content body it's subscribing to. For us, that type is of application JSON. So that would be what you would have to apply to tell our system what sort of content body is coming in. And then from there, we set that we want to get a return. We're expecting a return from our system to confirm that the information has actually been sent out, which is what the return transfer line is for. After that, we then create a variable for the execution. The result is, after that return curl execute goes out, it'll send back information to that variable result. We then go in and grab the information. If you wanted the HTTP information, that would be available through the info variable. So you can actually get things like the HTTP error message if it came out, and any extra data about the server that it's been interacting with. We then close the connection and echo out the result to you from the actual response. So here's an example of that response. You can see that up at the top we have an HTTP 200 OK return. From there you can see the actual JSON body. So you have a response object, and inside of that is the actual result, which is the UUID that you would use to access the actual object. What a UUID is basically a unique identifier which is generated by our system that will always be able to access your unique object. It's guaranteed within a very large margin that your object ID will be unique. So this is basically the way that you query up to the system using a GET or PUT request as to identify what the actual object is. This return response allows you to be able to go in, grab this information, and then store it in whatever back-end system that you may have so that you can then access it later. In the event of an error, you'll get not only an HTTP error, which in this case would be a 404 error, but also a more detailed body to tell you what exactly happened. We give you the error URL so that you can go in and look up in our documentation what actually went wrong, as well as the error code, so that you can have a better response of how to handle our different error states that we return from our system. We also give error info so that if you want some extra information to feed out in a debug log, you have it. For instance, in this case, that the system could not locate the resource that you were requesting if you were using a GET using that UUID. The next thing I want to cover is what is the Telephony Toolkit. Basically, this is the web interface through which you will be able to modify your system. Basically, it's the same as your control panel that you currently have, but the difference is we now have API features that are added to it. So it looks a bit different, and it's structured more for anyone who has, for developers and other people who want to interact with their applications to navigate through it. The idea is that it's designed so that anyone who has to maintain the system, whether you be a developer or a business owner or another user of the system, can log in through this your administrative panel and be able to figure out how things are going to be modified. As you can see in the display here, it's basically the same as your normal control panel. You would have at the top the ability for your drop-down menus to be able to access things such as your menus, queues, numbers, extensions, greetings, etc. that you normally have in your control panel. But underneath it, you can see that we have an API account dashboard, which is in your for your home page, so that you can actually access and modify the different application features that you have. In the upper right hand corner, we have a field for you to be able to give immediate feedback if you have any questions or concerns about the API. We also have our API documentation and our coming support community, which you'll be able to use to reference how it is that you're actually going to create your API integration. We provide a number for you for free, which is displayed here. You can use that to view all of your numbers or add another number as well. On the right hand side, we have a billing information that will be displayed. Right now in beta, the API is free for anyone to use, and if you are a current customer, any interactions that you use with the API will not be charged to your account. Underneath, we then have the interactions for the actual applications, so things such as being able to add a new application, being able to create a URL, apply what the URL is that you're going to be having your application direct to when you get responses back from it, and a qualifier for whether or not this application is in development mode or production mode. That means that you might get more verbose feedback from our system as to what's going on, and is a flag for you to know which applications you're currently working on versus ones that are currently out in the field. Through here, by actually creating an application or editing the one that's here, you'll be able to get the unique identifier that's associated with it and a password. An important note is that the account credential password is only given to you when you first create the application. You have to store that in a secure location before you continue on. Failure to do so, we block it from there on out, which is a fairly standard practice for most systems like Amazon AWS, so that you have your private key effectively, which no one else can get. That's effectively how our account credentials work for you being able to access the application. If you wanted to retrieve them, you would have to, if you don't have them written down, you would have to basically delete that node and then update the application credentials for everything else. So it's very important that you save your password. So now I'm going to go over with you some basic use cases that you can use the API for. One of them is a simple SMS notification system. So if someone wants to subscribe for notifications with your service, they'd send a subscription SMS message to it. You would then send a response, and you'd be able to subscribe so they can get active notifications for things that are being updated with your system. Another example is a call system news update. So let's say you have a general newsletter that people can call into every day to find out new deals that are going out, or be able to push calls out to customers for marketing or promotional campaigns. You can actually use our API to be able to call out or update your greetings on your system, so that whether customers dial in or you are calling them to let them know about a new deal, they'll be able to receive information from you. You can also use this to easily set up a number of franchise phone systems. If you already know what phone numbers and extensions that you have, all you need to do is use the pre-configured menus to then cross-reference each of those extensions with the given features that you have within your menu. You could also use this for different types of CRM integrations. We're planning on doing some ourselves for products such as Salesforce and those sorts of products. But if you have a custom phone system, CRM system that you want to actually integrate our phone system into, you'd be able to design and implement that using our API. We also have the ability to help you out with your help desk support communications. An example of this would be if they're normally you'd see on websites nowadays where there's a scroll bar that comes out from the side that says, "Hi, I'm Jeremy. How can I help you today?" It's basically an automated support client, which after you enter in a message into the actual request body and hit send, it'll send that out to a customer service representative. If you're a smaller company, you want to still give that appearance that you have a professional face. So if you're on the go, it'll forward to your cell phone, and then from there you can respond back, and the customer will have that same sort of will see that response within the same frame like you would with those chat clients. So it allows you to give that professional appearance even if you need a more robust solution for yourself on the go. There's also many more solutions you can come up with. One of the more interesting examples that we've had with a current customer is where they run a design company, and often for their proofs that are being sent out, like graphical proofs to be verified by their customers, email isn't sufficient. Basically, they don't get a quick enough response time from them in order to actually act on it to get it out in the timeline that they want. But most of them are able to respond via SMS. So what they do is they have the media on their back end for their proof. They send that into a link and then message out to the customer a small bit.ly link to that media. So they just click and then they can view it on their cellular device or whatever device is receiving the SMS, and then be able to respond to it immediately through that same client. So there's a lot of cool and interesting things that you can actually do with the system once you're able to register with it. Well, I thank you for your time today and being able to come out. If you're interested in actually trying out the API, you can go to dev.phone.com in order to actually sign up for our beta, and we'll try to get you access as soon as possible. We're slowly adding more and more people onto the service to help us test it out. We also have documentation openly available at docs.phone.com, so if you're more interested in digging deeper and finding out more about how the system actually interacts and how you'd actually be able to structure things as a developer, or how you would want to integrate it with your business system, you can go there. And if you want to, you can feel free to contact me at any time. My email is peter@phone.com. Or if you have any questions or concerns, you can email our API support email, api@phone.com, and that'll enter into our customer support system where myself, Aaron, or another customer service representative will be able to help you out. Thanks again for your time today, and I open up the floor now to any questions which I'll be able to respond to.